Hey fellas, what you're listening to here is a condensed cut of one of our most popular episodes, broken down to give you the frameworks, strategies, and stories that help good men become great men. Enjoy the show. I'm joined today by the one and only Dr. Robert Glover, author of a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, which I want to lead in with this introduction from one of our front row dad brothers who had an opportunity to connect in person with Robert recently, and I'm calling him Robert given permission here. And he sends this email introduction about Robert, and this is, by the way, pretty common of the experience of men who are familiar with his work and have read his book. His intro starts off by saying, "Over the past 5 years, there is no book that I have given, recommended, pushed on people, or hidden in people's bags more than No More Mr. Nice Guy." And it just goes on to sing the praises of the book. So I've been hearing about this book for years. And I know Robert has been on podcasts of several friends of mine, including recently, I heard, Robert, when you were in Austin, you saw Preston Smiles.
Oh, I love Preston. Yeah, he and I have a history.
Couple other great dudes here in Austin, and I read this book thinking that I would know all of what's in it. There was definitely an ego trip associated with the title, and I'm like, oh, I've done work here. I know I'm a recovering nice guy, and yet still, I was blown away. How well the book was written. How many times I raised my hand and said, "Oh, that's me. That's definitely me." And the other thing I want to say to you, Robert, is that as I read it, there was part of me that honored the work that I had done. I was like, oh, if I had read this 20 years ago, I would have been coming into it as a beginner. And now I'm looking at it saying, oh, look, I did some of that work. Oh, I could see how I used to be way more like that. I'm less like that now. And the beautiful part of reading your book was it gave me enough light and illuminated parts of my life where I could clearly see I had a lot of work left to do. and I was reading it saying, oh yeah, I may be intellectually familiar with that idea, but I have not embodied it. It has not come naturally to me yet. And I'm still working on it. And one of the things that I want to say here to tee up my first question for you, Robert, is that, the book, I think people can infer some of it from the title, but I don't think they can get all of what's in that book by just hearing the title. They need to read the book. And even the most, I would say, emotionally advanced men I know, people that I've done deep work, men in their 40s and men in their 50s, I've sent this book to them and they send me back responses like a mind-blowing emoji, or I'm only 4 chapters in and already this is one of the greatest books I've ever read. This is people who have done the work. And one of the things that I noticed was that when I learned about what it meant to be a nice guy in my life, to be a people pleaser, when I tried to wrangle that in, a lot of things I did and a lot of things I said, I came across as an asshole because I swung the pendulum all the way into not Mr. No More Mr. Nice Guy, but Mr. like, fuck off, fuck you, fuck this. And I'm trying to find that pendulum, on my way back to the middle. I say all that as a welcome to you. I say all that as a confession, to be vulnerable, to open up this dialogue and say, I'm here to learn myself. I'm here to explore with you. I'm deeply grateful for your time. And you're a dad, you're married, you live in Mexico. And to me, you're living this incredible life that you've crafted and created. You've worked with many individuals over the years. You held a PhD in marriage and family therapy. You said yourself, you're a recovering nice guy. And, throughout the book, you talk about your No More Mr. Nice Guy group, which I think you founded in the 90s. And is that correct? Is that when you started that?
Well, I started doing, men's groups.
Oh, the men's retreats, right? But No More Mr. Nice Guy was published in 2003, right?
Yeah, Sprint version 2003.
But they had basically talked you into it. Because you were doing this work and people kept telling you need to write the book. And didn't it take you a couple years to get this done?
Yeah, more than a couple of years. Um, by the way, thanks for having me on this show. I don't know
Yeah,
what
man.
else there is for me to say. Yeah, I feel good. You just boosted my sense of well-being. As we talked, I've had a cold for about a week, so but it's good to be here. It's good to hear. Yeah, I like praise. I like affirmation. Not just because I'm a nice guy. I like knowing that what I've done's made a difference in the world. And yeah, I started working on my own now that I call it nice guy issues. I was in my early 30s. I'm 68 now, so it's been a little while. And I was in therapy, got in a men's group, got in a 12-step program, and started seeing, these nice guy patterns in me that I thought, hey, being a nice guy will get me love. It'll get me, I'll be liked, loved, and get my needs met because I'm such a nice guy. And it wasn't quite working that way. Especially my then wife said, everybody thinks you're so nice, but you're not. You can be passive aggressive. You lie to me. You don't follow through on things. You embarrass me in public. You hurt my feelings. I'd rather be with a jerk. At least I know a jerk's going to be a jerk all the time. You're nice, and then you're not. And she said, you need help. And I thought, well, you're the one who's unhappy all the time and never wants to have sex anymore and always in a bad mood. But okay, I'll go get help. And I went thinking, I wanted to go find out why me being a nice guy didn't make my wife appreciate me.
Right.
And luckily, I landed in some good places. I landed in a 12-step group for sex addicts where I didn't really belong, but it was just the right place for me to start being vulnerable and revealing myself. Got into therapy, got into a men's group. And I was a marriage and family therapist, in private practice. And I started noticing men coming to me that were saying the same things I was. I could finish their sentences. I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I treat my wife better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I give her everything she wants, but it's never good enough. When's it going to be my turn? She's never happy, and she never wants to have sex anymore. And I thought, well, I could finish their sentences. And then there were a few, single guys in this mix that were saying things like, I'm a nice guy. I've got lots of female friends. All the women tell me about all their problems and their jerk boyfriends and their jerk ex-boyfriends that they keep going back to. And they keep telling me, you're going to make some lucky woman. It's a great man, great husband. But
Yeah.
they don't want to be with me. That's before the word friend zone, I think, maybe had
Yes.
emerged into popular. So I
Yes.
started, yeah, No More Mr. Nice Guy men's group back probably early 90s, yeah. And soon started another one, and I just started writing stuff. I set aside Wednesdays to write,
Mm.
and I just every other week when we met, I just give them a few pages of what I was learning personally about what I was then calling nice guy syndrome, and what I was learning about me, how it evolved, where it came from, how it shows up in men's lives, why it doesn't work, why it makes us anything but nice. As my ex-wife was right, I often wasn't a very nice person, wasn't a good person often, and so I just kept writing these chapters, and the men and their wives and girlfriends and my wife and my kids kept saying, write a book, write a book. A lot of people need this. You could go on Oprah. This could be a bestseller. And never did make it on Oprah, but the book, it took me about 6-7 years to write it because I was not only learning about nice guy syndrome, because there was really nothing out there at that time about men and codependency. And I intentionally did not use the word codependency in the book but that's what it is. Nice guy syndrome basically is the giving to get or borrowed functioning, which is a term I like even better than codependency.
You're not like most men. You don't just scroll, you study. You don't just parent, you lead. And you don't just read, you implement. And that's why we made this, a no-fluff, battle-tested list of books that sharpen men like you. Picked by our tribe, proven in real life, these books are going to stretch your mind, fuel your growth, and challenge who you thought you had to be. These aren't just great reads. They're tools to help you grow as a father, husband, and a man. Get the list and all the insights that bring it to life at frontrowdads.com/books.
Because most of the material about codependency at that time, the term originated in the addictions field. And so the codependent was the person in a relationship with the dependency, whether it be drugs, alcohol, gambling. The codependent often, got their sense of identity through trying to help them solve their problems,
Right.
fix them, get them back to good. And then the term was beginning to be used a lot with women, like books like Women Who Love Too Much and things like that. But so when I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, I kind of wanted a fresh slate. I didn't want people to go, oh, he's talking about codependent. I'm a guy. Guys can't be codependent. So I just left the word completely out. And so I was learning about that, both in myself, the men I was working with. At one time in private practice, I was leading 5 men's groups a week. So I've done a lot of work with men, around this. And then once I got the book finished, it took about 3 years to get published. My agent shopped it to a lot of big publishers, and a lot of editors said, Robert, I love your book. It's well written. It's a good book, but our marketing department says men won't buy a self-help book.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's kind of pre-Amazon, pre-Kindle, pre-Audible. But yeah, the royalty checks are 6 figures a year. So I guess men do buy,
Yeah, exactly.
and they have been for a while, and they keep going up. So apparently men buy self-help books, especially when they hear about a book on a podcast and they go on Amazon. People who bought this book, and yeah, I'll buy those too. We may never read them or listen to them, but we'll buy the books. So, and as you said, that's been, 20 plus years ago that it came out in print. And I'm continuing to do the work on me. I continue to work with nice guys. I had a workshop in my house a weekend or so ago. I'm headed up to Northern California next week to speak at a program up there. So, I had a thought when I was listening to your introduction. I went back to New York about 6.5 years ago, almost 7 years ago, to read for the Audible version of No More Mr. Nice Guy. It had been read originally by a professional voice. And, after about close to 20 years, the book was only available in Audible in North America. And a lot of people said, Robert, how come you didn't read the book? So I told my agent, I said, we fulfilled the contract. Let's cancel it. And I want to read it. So my agent took care of that. And the company that had the contract for the spoken version got back, said, okay, we'll cancel your contract, and then sent another email and said, and we want you back. And, we want you to, basically said, we'll give you a $75,000 advance to get you back. And I go, I didn't see that one coming. I just wanted to cancel it. I wanted to read it. And we'll pay you $5,000 to come to New York and read it. But a couple experiences I had while reading it, because I hadn't read it, maybe in close to 20 years. Because, when you're writing a book, you're just in it day and night, for years. And then after you're done, it's kind of like, it's done. So I was reading it, and 2 things came up. Like you mentioned, that you kind of go, I haven't embodied that one yet, or I still got more to learn on that one. And I'm reading it going, oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Oh yeah, I'm still doing that one. Oh yeah, this is a good reminder that, so it was really good for me to go back and reread it and just have the experience of rereading the stories of the men I worked with over the years. But I think that the number one takeaway for me was in rereading it is that, because I've worked with men so much over the last 30 years, I realized the book isn't just for men who identify, quote, as nice guys. I think there's so much confusion out there nowadays as what does it mean to be masculine? Is it even a good thing to be masculine? What is a positive masculinity? What is a man? I think there's just so much confusion, so little direction perhaps from fathers, so much confusion in the school system. I think I was reading, I thought, I think this is, number one, I was happy. I thought, this is a good book. I'm happy with it. I'm glad this came out of me. And I realized, again, it wasn't just for nice guys. I think it's probably a pretty good book for most, except for assholes. They may not get anything out of it. But
I don't know, man, though. I think there are some people who the reason they're assholes is because they have some of these tendencies, or that at least they're perceived that way. That's what it feels like to me. Like deep down inside, there's still a person who wants to be, who's seeking approval.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And let me go back to something you said about, your pendulum swinging. And yeah, I talk in there, especially in the book, about when nice guys start learning to set boundaries. Great subject. I didn't learn about boundaries till I was in my 30s, in my second marriage. and already had a PhD in marriage and family therapy. And I go to see a therapist and she puts a string on the ground and says, let's talk about boundaries. Now, I don't know if she did that with every client in their first session or if she just looked, this guy needs the boundary talk. So, there's that whole piece about boundaries. And I say in the book that often nice guys become what I call kamikaze boundary setters. They go from having no boundaries to, they pull out the chainsaw, when just a fly swatter, might get the job done. So that's often true. And a thing that nice guys will say to me a lot, and this goes back to the part about, the assholes wanting love and affection and attention as well, is nice guys will say, okay, I get it that being a nice guy doesn't serve me, but I don't want to go become that asshole jerk. I need to find a balance, that middle ground. And I go, actually, I think both of these are actually toxic extremes, and I don't know what the tipping point is between two toxic extremes. And what I mean by that, I think both what I call the nice guy and what let's just call the asshole jerk are both driven by shame, fear, and anxiety. And I think both stay in a pretty constant state of fight, flight, freeze. But you have the nice guy over here on this end of the fight, flight, freeze spectrum, and he's in flight, freeze, or we could add fawn to that, trying, oh yeah. Let me get you to love me. I'll be the good guy. And
define then fawn real quick, by the way.
I think it just comes from the word like you're fawning over somebody, where you just, you do everything in your power to try to be liked. And,
I see.
And not have negative reactions from this other person. You don't hear the term used a lot, but I see it now tacked onto the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response now. Now, at the other end of it, I think what we would call the asshole jerk is in the fight response most of the time. Now, he or she uses aggressiveness to manipulate people and situations to hide their shame and vulnerability and manage their fear and anxiety, whereas the nice guy is manipulating people and situations to hide their vulnerability and manage their fear and anxiety by the flee and the freeze. So I think they're both really trying to do the same thing. And that is manage their vulnerability wrapped around their shame, their anxiety and fear by managing people and situations. Nice guy does it with flight, freeze. Asshole does it with fight. So, and in No More Mr. Nice Guy, I talk about two types of nice guys. One I call the I'm so good nice guy, and the other's I'm so bad nice guy. I thought originally all nice guys were like me. I thought I'm such a great guy. Why wouldn't everybody like me? Why wouldn't everybody want to be like me? Why wouldn't everybody, have this paradigm? And I thought by being so nice, I'd build up a lot of credits in my, nice bank account that nobody should ever get mad at me or criticize me or find fault in me. And I remember, again, early in my second marriage, my second wife was really into self-help books, and she was reading a lot of John Bradshaw at that time and reading books like Healing the Shame That Binds You. I remember she was reading in bed, and reading it. She goes, this is you, this is you, this is you. And I go, what? And so she's reading to me about shame. And I already had my PhD at that time, and I'm not dumb. I couldn't really even understand the concept of what it was or why she thought it applied to me. I said, that applies to you. You're the one who doesn't like yourself. And it's interesting that people will tell me now, says, Robert, I love how you describe shame in No More Mr. Nice Guy. I really understood it. I thought, well, good, because I didn't back before I started writing No More Mr. Nice Guy. So there's for the I'm so good nice guy, his shame, like me, was pushed way down in this really deep in this airtight, sealed compartment that, it's there because, every reaction implies an action. My reaction and reaction of a lot of nice guys is, I got to be good. I got to prove to people I'm good. Well, why would you try to prove to people you're good if you didn't have some sense that you're not, right? That's shame. That I'm not okay.
That's right.
Then the second type of nice guys I call the I'm so bad nice guy. And this is the guy who actually growing up, the I'm so good nice guy tended to kind of, hide and go underground and go along to get along and ask permission rather than forgiveness and not rock the boat. The I'm so bad nice guy often was the acting out child. often because maybe of like addictions in the family, or maybe ADHD in the child, or just responding to the control and trying to be opposite of a nice guy sibling. They'd act out, get in trouble, getting punished, getting kicked out of school, starting doing drugs at an early age. You're just, maybe just a hellraiser. And then maybe this person goes in the military or finds God or gets married or has a kid, and they go, I got to straighten my life out. Now they've still got all that shame that I'm not okay just as I am, but they go, I got to do something different here. So maybe they start trying to be a nice guy, right? They kind of put it on like a jacket. I got to be a nice guy because I can't keep fucking up in the way I've been fucking up all my life. But their shame's right up here close to the surface. They know it's only a matter of time. If anybody really gets to know them, they're going to find out what a fuck up they really are. So both types of nice guys are in the seeking external validation, the people approving, often conflict avoidant, often get into codependent relationships. But one has their shame a lot further down out of sight, and the other one is a lot up here. And then, so that's where going back to your point, that maybe the asshole, maybe he's got a lot of the same dynamic going on as the nice guy. It's just
I feel like I've been both of those
what
people,
phase? What phase have we caught you in? That's maybe the only question.
That's it. Right as you're describing both of those, I'm like, oh, I can see periods in my life when I played both sides of that fence, for sure. Yeah, very interesting.
Dealing with the same issues beneath all that, and that the shame and the anxiety are the two core pillars of nice guy syndrome, as I see it.
Two terms I want to define here for this conversation. One is, how do you see a boundary? And also shame. How do you see those two, and how would you define them?
Okay, well, let's start with shame and then bring me back to boundary if I forget. Okay. Shame is an inaccurately internalized belief, often at a very young age, often weeks, months, years old, of a child, and this means pretty much every human walking the planet. When a child has uncomfortable or painful experiences, because children are narcissistic by nature, they believe they are the cause of everything that happens to them. So if mom is depressed and unavailable, if dad's angry, if parents are fighting, if parents break up, if the kid's just hungry and doesn't get fed, or messes in their diaper and doesn't get changed, or is cold and doesn't get wrapped up, the child internalizes, this is really important, on an emotional basis, I caused that. There's something wrong with me. Now, that's not on a verbal, because when a child, up into about 2 years old, most children don't get verbal till they're, approaching, year and a half, 2 years old. And so the only part of a child's brain that's completely online at birth is down here on the brainstem and the amygdala, which controls that fight, flight, freeze response. It manages heart rate and respiration. It keeps us alive, right? And the theory's been for quite some time, and as far as I still know, it's still pretty much a current valid theory, is that the amygdala also stores up emotional memory. It becomes our emotional operating system. It's kind of what that and temperament kind of determines our nervous system and how we respond to stimuli in the world. So when I say that's an inaccurately internalized belief, and it's not even a spoken belief like up here in the prefrontal cortex of our brain, it's down here on brainstem. It's like the machine language of the computer that just says, I'm bad, I'm evil, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, there's something wrong with me. It's kind of like trying to put words on God, or, ineffable type things where there is no word. There's almost no word to go with shame. It's just a feeling state. Now, as we go through life, we begin to take life's experiences that have words and pile them on top of that machine language. So that now becomes kind of all the apps running
just
on
making
top.
Sounds with our mouths.
it's so, there's the emotion. Now you go to kindergarten and maybe you don't fit in, or maybe you get teased, or, maybe you get picked on, or maybe you get bullied, or maybe you get to junior high and the girls don't like you, or the boys, ignore you. And now you take those events and now you have experiences and words to attach to that emotional belief system below it all. Now, one of the problems we all deal with is, you're probably familiar with the term confirmation bias, that if we have a belief about something, a strongly held belief, the world is going to support that belief. We're going to see what we believe to be true everywhere we go. So if we have some sense that I'm not okay and not good enough, we're going to see the world as reinforcing that, and it's true. Now, one thing that every child does to deal with those uncomfortable feelings and the emotional beliefs we internalize is we try to do two things. In the moment, we're talking about a 2-week-old baby, right? 2-month-old baby, 2-year-old child. In the moment, one thing a child will do is they will try to self-soothe. They will try to manage the uncomfortable feelings from whatever they're experiencing, from being cold, hungry, lonely, whatever it may be. And they're using an underdeveloped, 2-week-old brain, 2-month-old brain. For example, I sucked my thumb until I was in kindergarten, thinking maybe I was dealing with some uncomfortable emotions. That's how I soothed myself. Babies might cry, they might not cry, they might eat, they might not eat, they might sleep a lot, they might not sleep. The baby will do whatever the baby can do to try to push those uncomfortable feelings down. The second thing that every child begins learning to do, again, at a very primitive basis, is to try to act in the world differently to prevent those painful things from happening again, because the child assumes it's my fault, I caused it. So now they're out there in the world, doing things that their 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 7-year-old brain thinks it's logical and makes sense to try to avoid the things that make them have the uncomfortable experiences. Being a nice guy or a nice girl is just one of probably many different ways. Being a perfectionist, being an overachiever, being a rebel, pushing back, being oppositionally defiant. There's so many different ways to try to cope and manage, and most are dysfunctional. And this is probably what we would call neuroses. Neuroses are those dysfunctional mechanisms we developed in childhood to try to manage the fact that we were needy, dependent, and defenseless little children. And we couldn't make our needs a priority. We couldn't protect ourselves. We couldn't take care of ourselves. So that's where our neuroses come from. And then they get more solidified in adolescence. We carry them into adulthood, and we think this is who I am and this is how the world works. All seen through the eyes of what we internalized when we were 2 weeks old.
I so badly, I can see so much of this now, and I so badly want to be liked. I want to make people smile. I know I can't make people smile, but it feels that way.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, so I have said multiple times over the last couple of years, I'm so much better with my yeses and nos at this stage of my life. I'm so much better communicating what I'm really thinking. I'm so proud of myself for the growth that I've had. And yet 2 weeks ago, I was in Hawaii with my 14-year-old. We did a week-long adventure. I went there to record a podcast with one of my buddies, and we had an amazing,
a business trip, right?
It was an amazing business trip surrounding Tiger with all these epic business dudes and having incredible conversations. And but I finished your book, just going into that trip or on that trip, and I was sitting at a restaurant with Tiger, a Thai food place. And this guy we got to know, his mom and dad owned the restaurant. He was our waiter, and he was really, really cool. At the end, he brought us 2 desserts, and he said, these are on the house, thanks for being awesome, guests. And I'm not eating sugar right now, and I really didn't want it, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings. So I ate this dessert. I didn't even think about it. I didn't process it. It wasn't a logical thing. I just picked it up and ate it.
Yeah.
And as I was walking out completely stuffed and thinking to myself, I shouldn't have eaten that dessert. And then it all hit me that I do this. I literally will compromise my own body, my own commitment, my own value of health so that I don't offend this guy who I really wanted to honor and love. And the intention was so beautiful. I'm not mad at myself for wanting to honor somebody, but I was a little sad to think, in that moment and many moments previously, I would do exactly what I just did there. And I could have said, hey, thank you so much for that dessert, man. I really appreciate it. Right now, I'm sugar-free. I won't be eating it, but man, it means a lot that you brought it out to me.
Yeah.
I could do that. And I want to be able to be present enough and conscious enough in the moment to be able to say what I just said. In hindsight, I would want that, but this shows up for me a lot.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me. So let me kind of, put a context to it, and we'll still maybe even use that to lead us back into boundaries. Because what you just said there of what you could have said would have been a beautiful boundary.
Exactly.
Maybe not how we usually think of boundaries. You usually think of, don't you ever do that again or I'm leaving. We think that's right. A boundary. It is, but, there's lots of other boundaries. Here's one of the things about nice guy syndrome is that most of the men I work with are genuinely good, kind people, right? I don't think most men would have, whether it's at 2 weeks old, 2 months, 2 years old, or 20 years old, would have taken on the mantle of trying to be nice if they already didn't have that inclination to be kind. And so a lot of times that can be confusing for men when they start looking at the nice guy patterns in their life and I'll give the example. Once they start learning about nice guy syndrome, your dessert example is a beautiful example. But, a similar one is, guys, he's been reading the books. Says, okay, I want to let go of my covert contracts, my seeking validation, my approval seeking. And he goes walking up the steps to, some big office building in a city and goes to open the door, big double glass doors, and starts to open the door. And as he's opening, he notices there's a woman walking up the stairs right behind him. So he steps back, opens it, lets her walk through. She walks through, and then he has a shame attack. He goes, oh, did I do that because it was a kind thing to do, or was I being a nice guy trying to get her validation and approval?
That's what I had after the dessert. I was like, I felt shame for myself.
Yeah, they're very parallel stories, and the thing is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Whether it was a kind thing to do that you ate it, and in a sense, it's not the end of the world, but every experience is a learning experience. And you had a learning experience. You go, I could have done that differently. I've got a wristband for my men's program where it just says do better. And, my men's program, we're not trying to, help men, be different person or better people. We can do better. Every day there's opportunities. I could have done that better. And it doesn't mean we were wrong or we did it badly, but we could do better. And I like that kind of incremental change. It has nothing to do with shame. With my identity as a person, with my lovability as a human being, I can just do better every day. And often in surprising little ways around desserts, right? Now, so here's the thing is that, when I think a lot of times when people pick up the book initially, I think when we published it, my publisher, Barnes & Noble, thought, oh, maybe there'll be a good pushback on this. It's got kind of a provocative title, No More Mr. Nice Guy. People say, why would somebody write a book teaching men to be not nice? There's enough not nice guys out there already. Right. And of course, that's the extreme. People think it like we were talking about. Well, if it's not this, it must be this. And I'll come back to that in a minute of what I really do talk about. It's actually taking things to another level, rather than just finding some tipping point between two extremes of vulnerability and anxiety management. So most nice guys, again, are kind, nice people. And so I'm not preaching against being kind or doing nice things. The guy that gave you the dessert was being kind or nice. Where we run into problem is where we don't have boundaries, as you mentioned, and where we're operating by what I call covert contracts.
Yeah.
And in No More Mr. Nice Guy, I'm going to give you even a clearer version of what I talk about in No More Mr. Nice Guy. There's 3 types of covert contracts that nice guys use. And by the way, for women listening to this, everything I say about nice guys, 98% of it can apply to women as well, to nice girls as well. So covert contract number 1 is that if I'm a good guy, I'll be liked and loved. And so that's what I was doing. And that's what a lot of nice guys are doing. We think, okay, in order to be liked and loved, I've got to be the nice guy. I got to be different than my dad, different than all the men I've heard women complain about, different than all the toxic masculinity. I've got to be whatever is not that, I've got to be good, to be liked and loved. Now the truth is, not everybody's going to like or love us. And the covert contract is, I'm a good guy. I got credits in the bank. I hear you complain about the jerks. I'm not a jerk. You should like me and love me. And where this can get toxic. And if you go go Google a little bit about nice guys, if you find any blog article written by women, they're almost always talking about this toxic of nice guy syndrome, where the woman will write in, oh, I was going through a hard time, and this guy, he became my friend, and he listened to me, and he was there for me, and then he helped me out. And then, he reached a point, and then all of a sudden he says he wanted to take me out. And when I said, no, I don't want to go out with you, you're my friend. And then he got really aggressive sexually. And then he started being really mean to me. And the women are right. The guy had a covert contract. He was practicing what I call nice guy seduction. It's what I did for years. That is, I'll be different than the jerks. I'll listen to you talk about your problems. I'll do nice things for you. I'll help your sister move. I'll make your car payment. I'll hide my sexual agenda from you. I won't be aggressive. And in return, you'll like me and love me and maybe want to be my girlfriend and have sex with me. Now, I see the same thing, married men doing the same thing. Guys will come to work with me and they'll say, Robert, what can you give me to change this pattern that I've got with my wife? And what's the issue? Well, we haven't had sex since our kids were born. How long has that been? 15 years ago. And they've been trying to do all the, they clean. I used to do this, clean the kitchen, wipe the counters, wash the dishes, take the garbage out. Now she'll want to have sex. It's still a covert contract. I'm being good. You'll give me back what I want. And it often leads to resentment, strong frustration at the minimum, but resentment and passive aggressive behavior, and sometimes even rage attacks. I've been known to have one or two of those. The second covert contract is if I read your mind and give to you what you need without you having to ask, then you will read my mind and give to me what I want without me having to ask. Now, this is crazy because we can't read anybody's mind. And mostly what we give to people, I call it caretaking rather than caring. We're giving what we need to give them so that they will appreciate us, so that they'll be happy, so that their life will be better. And then they'll give to us in return, maybe if it's even just appreciation or praise. And then again, when we don't get that back, and add to the point that nice guys are terrible receivers, which is another core issue that's worth diving into. We don't let people give to us, even while we're giving to them from a covert contract. Third covert contract is if I do everything right, then I will have a smooth and problem-free life. Well, life isn't smooth and problem-free. And how do we know we've done everything right? Because we're the scorekeeper. We got the big scoreboard up in our living room. So these are the three covert contracts leading nice guys, and it's all they really got. It's what we adapted to at a very early age. And when it doesn't work, we kind of just double down on those three things. I try to be better. I give more to you. I try to do everything right. I expect the world to be perfect and go the way I want. So there's a lot of these pieces mixed into this whole pool of nice guys. So here the guy gives you a dessert. Maybe he was just being genuinely kind and expressing gratitude. Maybe he's being a nice guy. Maybe he wanted your approval. You ate the dessert. Maybe you were just being kind, but maybe you didn't want his disapproval. So you ate it. And the truth is, again, it's all just a learning experience. And you can ask yourself, all right, next time I could have said, hey, can you box that up for me? I'm not doing sugar right now, but I got some buddies that will love that. You have it equally good. And again, it's okay if we don't come up with that one in the moment, right? But that's how we keep learning that we can still be kind, and we don't have to go, swing over here and be that asshole jerk, but we can still be kind and generous. I mean, people tell me that all the time. They say, Robert, you don't seem like you became an asshole. I mean, I can be a real prick, but that's not because of my nice guy recovery. That's other parts I'm still working on. So we can still be kind.
I know we have boundary to still kind of define, and we can get more into that, but I want to make sure I don't miss this opportunity to touch on something that you just brought up I don't remember what exact word, but it was like this rage that'll come up, right?
Yeah.
And I want to talk about this for a minute because I understand, at least I believe I understand about my own life. Like when I had these covert contracts and I wasn't being honest, I could give countless examples of this too. Like I could just take you back in time. I didn't speak my truth. I then got resentful and then I blew up, and I saw that pattern, and I could see how if I just kept shoving it down and eventually, it all erupts. What I'm now experiencing, and again, I'm just using myself as the guinea pig here for some of these conversations.
Me too.
Yeah.
Been doing it for 30 years.
It is what I'm experiencing now is that I get that intellectually, what I just said, I'm also being much more direct, much more clear, maybe borderline too aggressive or too, too clear, where maybe, subjective clearly, but I'm still getting to the point of like total frustration, raising, like my tone shifts, my volume goes up. And we, again, all of this, like, well, what is yelling? What is rage? These are subjective terms, maybe, unless we go in and carefully define them, but it's clearly I'm losing control. Okay. I mean, that's a fact. Like I'm dysregulated. I'll hang in there for a little while. I'll try not to be nicing anybody. I'll try not to I'll say what I need to say. But if what I'm saying, and I'm being really direct with you, like I'll tell you what I want or what I don't want, and you're not getting it, then I'm like, I feel like banging my head against a wall. And that's what leads me to rage, because I'm like, okay, I'm not covering it up. I'm telling you exactly what I think. I'm saying it 3 different ways to be really clear. You're not getting what I'm saying, and then
would it be correct to say, and she still doesn't go along with you?
And I still can't control her, Robert.
Yeah. Okay, let's have some fun with this. When I talked about that emotional operating system, guys will come to me, if they've read the book or they hear me on a podcast or whatever, and they go, okay, I see myself in the book. How long is this going to take? That's such a guy question. How long is it going to take? I go, I don't know. I'll tell you when I get done. I don't know. I've been working on this stuff for about 30 years. I've done a lot of therapy, been in men's programs. I've done plant medicine. I've done meditation. I've done a lot of stuff to work on me, and I still work on me. And kind of that whole proverbial peeling the layers of the onion, I think is really true. We'll do this till the day we die. But what's been profound for me at the stage I'm at is pretty much what you're saying, is that I'm realizing how much of this really is wired into my nervous system, my energetic way of being in the world, and how old it really is. Because, to mimic what you just talked about, when my wife and I got married 7.5 years ago, I got into a men's program. I was living in Mexico, feeling kind of feeling really isolated, and my wife and I were already having struggles. I'm in my 3rd marriage, and I go, man, I don't know, I don't want another marriage to crash and burn, and so I really wanted to do what I could to work on my part of she had her stuff, I had my stuff, and so one of the pattern that just kept happening is just, in a nutshell, my wife is typical jealous Latina. She's Mexican. Every man she's ever known in her entire life has been a serial cheater. Every one of them, right? That's wired into her nervous system. Men cheat. Down here in Mexico, women flirt with other women's men for sport. If I can get him to turn and look at me and pay attention, I won. It's sport, in a macho culture. And so my wife is projecting these things. Well, you're looking at that woman's butt, or, I know you're cheating on me. I know you've got a girlfriend. I know you're going to leave me. I know you must be fucking the next door neighbor, and every time she'd do that, there'd be not only her words, but her facial expression, how her body changes. I can tell when she's ruminating. Now, I don't know if she's ruminating about stuff about me or just ruminating in general. I can tell. Everything shifts. That activates my nervous system. Just her shift in body language activates it. And she can get a turned down look on her face that just is like, I feel like I'm going to die if I don't fix this. Now, I can stand back. I can be the witness of the witness of the witness watching me. And that nervous system still gets triggered like, I'm going to die. I know I'm not going to die. This woman's not going to leave me. And she's very loving, and she thinks the world of me. She just has her energetic triggers that and we all do, right? This is why relationships, are so amazing. If we can be conscious, all that stuff comes up and we get to work with it. But it was triggering mine is, I'm being falsely accused. I realized I love a good vindication. I didn't do that. But here's my pattern. When I see that look, it triggers an energetic response that now I'm aware of. For a lot of times I wasn't particularly aware of. Then I go into my talk her down through off the ledge kind of thing of, calmly defending myself, showing where she's wrong, showing where she's been wrong in the past, just calmly trying to get her back to good. Because I don't want her, what she's projecting is wrong. And I don't want her to be in misery over a wrong belief. And mainly, I want my world back to good. I want that calm, peaceful world, right? I'm doing everything right. I should have that calm, peaceful world. Well, when that doesn't work, that calm superpower of talking somebody down off the ledge, unfortunately, not a good superpower to have, but I learned it as a child. I was kind of the horse whisperer in my house that kind of got things back to calm. Then something switches in me, and I can just go ballistic. One of my favorite stories is this is about 6-7 years ago. We're lying on the bed. My wife didn't even say a word. She just was being non-responsive and had that look. And it just triggered me. I got up. I bought myself a new Kindle. And I love my Kindle. I love to read on my Kindle. I got up and, this is brilliant. I threw it against the wall. And in Mexico, the houses are made out of concrete. So my wall's concrete right above the bed. I just threw it against the wall. Like that was a real wise thing to do. And you know what? I don't recommend this, but it looked really cool. Sparks went everywhere, right? That's kind of cool. I picked it up. I threw it again. More sparks went. I picked it. I threw it a third time. There's still dents in the concrete wall above my bed that I've left there. Haven't patched. And my wife got up, left the house, drove away somewhere. And surprisingly, I didn't have a major shame attack about it. Now, I didn't feel good about my behavior, but I just stripped the sheets, got all the glass, remade the bed, swept it up, went down to my office. She came home later on, didn't talk to me. I went up to the bedroom later on that night, and she'd taken her Kindle and put it on my nightstand.
Oh,
I mean, that's the kind of woman she is, right? Yeah, I don't know if she felt guilt that she tripped. I mean, that was all on me. And she said, "You can have my Kindle." I said, No, I'm going to read from my old Kindle. I bought myself a new one for my birthday. I'm going to wait a year before I buy another one, just as a reminder. That's not, I can do better, right? I can do better. Yeah. Now, I didn't go into a shame attack about it, but it was a pretty illustrative experience of how my nervous system just took over. So here's what I've found after years of working.
That's what's happening. That's what's happening to me. Yes.
It's nervous system. We can know stuff. We can read every self-help book. We can go to therapy. We can go to workshops.
Yeah.
But this stuff is so deep in our nervous system. Now, will it always be down there? Maybe. I'm going to assume it might be, that I might always have those kind of impulse. But here's the good news. I now can feel my body shifting when it's happening. I can feel the change in my respiration. I can watch my thoughts start spinning up in terms of how I got to talk her down. And then, then my wife's such a dear. She'll walk in and she'll go, "I don't want to fight, but can I tell you something?" I go, "What's on your mind?" And so, "I don't want to fight." I go, "Yeah, you do. You like to fight." And she goes, "No," she does like to fight, actually. And I go, "Why don't you just, why don't we just skip all of this, your accusations? Why don't I just call you, names, say you have a broken brain, you're sick. Why don't we just go to that part? I'll yell at you." She goes, "It's not the same if you're not really mad at me." So we found a way to have humor, in all of this. I go, "What's on your mind?" "Oh, same old thing." I go, "Well, you got about 12 same old things. Which of the 12? "Oh, the same one." "Oh, you think I'm fucking the neighbor again?" "Uh-huh. Okay. Why do you think that?" "Well, there was a white towel in her bathroom window the other day." "Oh, and that was a sign I was supposed to come over and fuck her?" "I don't know what else it could mean. I can't think of anything else either." But so, we can have a sense of humor about it, but she has her triggers in her nervous system. I got my triggers in my nervous system. And luckily we got enough love in there that, we're actually kind of gotten this pretty much under control to where it does come up. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we're walking the dog in the park, and some young woman walks by one end of the park, and my wife goes, "Next time she walks by, why don't you just stop and stare? That'd be better. That way I can just keep walking. I don't care. I know you're checking your watch, see when she's coming." And I felt it. I felt my nervous system, felt my body, felt my breath, felt my projections. I breathed. Took her hand lovingly, kept walking, kept tossing the balls for the dog. And by the time we made another lap or two and left the park, she never said another word about it, and she was fine as could be.
Well,
So
what's the rep there, Robert? Like for me, again, I understand that intellectually. I have had wins in that department. And yet yesterday,
build on those. Build on those wins.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean maybe that's it. I went to lunch with Tatiana, my wife. She's spicy Russian, you
I was
know.
gonna say that sounds like a feisty name, right? My
Yeah,
wife's
yeah, yeah.
Lupita. Lupita and
Seven,
Tatiana. You just
17
gotta
years.
expect they're gonna be feisty, right?
17 years we've been together, and I have said 100 times on this podcast that it's been a very challenging situation, and I'm trying to take my part of that. I don't come on the show and be like, she's so challenging and I'm so perfect, but like I'm challenged to
Yeah.
keep my nervous system regulated. We were going to go talk about school, which is a very triggering topic right now. For my 14-year-old, like what school does he go to? What's our view on education? And I went and I said, I'm just going to ask questions. I'm just going to take notes. I'm going to remain very calm. I'm not going to take the bait, not going to get triggered. I'm not going to fight back. And I did it for about 15 minutes. She said something. I took notes. I even repeated it back to her. I was like, what you said. And I go, honestly, we agree on all these things. And then she said something about him playing Fortnite, you know, this game that he likes to play. And she said something to the effect of, so you just think it's okay for him to be on Fortnite for 8 hours a day, which I never said any such thing. And
you gotta love it. Gotta love
and
it.
it's so
I call that throwing darts.
oh, dude.
And-
Yeah. So
Well,
yes.
it doesn't matter if the dart's accurate or if they believe it. If it hits a bullseye and gets a reaction,
Oh,
boom. They just go, did it
and
again.
I talked with my buddy Jason Gaddis about this too. Like sometimes I think my nervous system, I fly off the handle because I go, we're not even in a shared reality conversation right now. Like we're just not even.
You're not. You're not.
Feels
actually.
like it feels crazy to me. It feels
All right.
crazy to me. And by the way, I want to be clear. I have thrown many darts in my life. And so I'm confessing that I'm not able to regulate myself in that place. It starts to get crazy. And I'm like, I can feel my nervous system going, this is worthless. We're not getting anywhere. I did everything I was supposed to do. I just listened. I repeated
Those are your
back.
cues. Those are your cues. Okay. I got good news for you. You know, again, our nervous system may always have these triggers.
Right.
The good news is we can come to notice them a lot quicker, have better tools for working with them, and just better tools for dealing with the situation. Now, again, I hear you. You and I could probably sit and swap stories, you know, all the times, you know, they've triggered us, we acted inappropriately back. Yeah, we probably just got lots of good stories. Here's, like I said, I joined a men's program and you know, spent 6 years in it, primarily because I wanted to work on this thing we're talking about here. How do I not keep reacting? Kind of that Viktor Frankl quote of, you know, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose. And you know, the response we choose is at least what is our growth and our freedom. I'm probably paraphrasing it.
Basically, that's it. Yep.
Basically, close enough. So there's a space there, right?
That's right.
So the piece that kind of I got two things that I'll give you. One is just my general mantra in life for dealing with anxiety and stress, no matter what it is, whether it's my partner, whether it's finances, whether it's, you know, having to say no to a dessert sat in front of me, right? And it's just real simple. First is ground. Just think, all right, I just literally get my feet on the ground. I'm barefoot right now. I love being barefoot. And so I just feel the tile under my feet. I can be laying on a bed and you can still ground, kind of get your weight and energy down in your body. Breathe, just find a nice, easy diaphragmatic breath, just nice flow. Could be easy box breath, just in through the nose, out through the mouth, however you do. Just breathe. And then the next for me is just open to what's happening in front of me. That's letting go of any judgment of it, that it should be happening different. And then get curious. Get curious about my reaction, get curious about the other person's reaction. And with practice, and there's not a lot to this, You can get where you can do this in microseconds. You just kind of get yourself grounded, you breathe, open to whatever the situation is, and get curious about the situation. Now, I'm going to give you a piece that I've been a marriage therapist, started doing marriage therapy 40 years ago. I think the majority of fights that couples have are not what they're really fighting about. In fact, there's an axiom in marriage therapy that what a couple's fighting about is really not what they're fighting about. So that's, that's why when they come to a marriage therapist, and the marriage therapist now has to listen to what they're fighting about and get on each other's sides of what they're fighting about. That's where marriage therapy often is not very effective, because you're not really dealing with whatever it is they're really fighting about. Often it's, fears of abandonment, is shame, is anxiety. So one of the patterns I've seen with men and women, and I'm going to make generalizations here, so, people might call me out, but here's what I've seen. The woman makes an emotional statement. Oh, so you're really okay with him being on, Fortnite 8 hours a day? It's an emotional statement. The man hears it as a factual statement. Now, it's factually crazy. And now you want to argue facts, right? And what happens is you get triggered and you go, that's just fucking, that's how, and guys go, well, how do you know she makes an emotional statement? I said, 2 ways you know. 1, it sounds batshit crazy to you. And 2, you want to argue facts. That's how you know it was an emotional statement, right? So when you got triggered, and by the way, when I was doing marriage therapy, women did tell me that they would throw darts and start fights with their boyfriends or husbands just when they were bored and just wanted. The feminine needs emotional tension to feel connected to and desire to a man. We men don't like emotional tension.
I had friends tell Tatiana that they said, I think you two need to fight so you can have makeup sex.
It's all part of the equation. So here's the deal. She makes the emotional statement. You hear the factual statement. You feel falsely accused. You want to argue facts. You feel like she's batshit crazy, and she feels unheard, unseen, and unvalued. Women used to tell me in therapy, I just don't feel validated by him. And I go, listen, babe, you're talking to 2 men, your husband and me. You're going to have to define what validation means. Does that mean that we have to agree with you on everything? That's what validating you means? Because women will say, I just don't. So I'll give you an example. This was a few years ago. I was going to do a workshop here in Puerto Vallarta at a hotel up the hill here. My wife took the kids and went to Guadalajara, where she's from. And my assistant, who lives in Veracruz, he came and so we were doing the workshop at the hotel. I was going to still sleep here at our house. So she takes off, and then my assistant's here, and we're headed to the hotel before the workshop. And we stop at a Starbucks to get a coffee. And I'm messaging my wife all this stuff. She took the bus to Guadalajara, so I messaged her. We stopped at Henrik and I stopped at Starbucks. Now my jealous Latina wife, in every Starbucks in town, there's probably 10 or 11 here in Puerto Vallarta, and there's at least one woman in there that's a puta, that's been trying to get my attention, that she's sure of, right? So she knows if I went to a Starbucks, it's because I went there for some particular puta. Now, that doesn't get said, right? I just told her stop at Starbucks. So 5 minutes before I was about to start the workshop, I get a message. It says, you haven't told me I love you all day. I go, oh. Now, luckily, I felt my nervous system. It was factually incorrect. And the way I look at it, all right, it's an emotional statement. And so I've been able now to break it down to, since we're talking about partners here, typically when our woman is behaving in ways we don't understand or can't make sense of, making these emotional statements or acting in emotional ways, instead of my story being projected, I've broken it down to usually my woman's not feeling sufficiently loved by me right now, not feeling sufficiently connected to me right now, or not feeling sufficiently safe with me right now. And is there anything I can do about any of those 3 things?
Can you say those 3 again?
Either my woman's not feeling sufficiently loved by her man right now, my woman's not feeling sufficiently connected to her man right now, my wife's not feeling sufficiently safe or trusting with her man right now. And then I ask myself, is there anything I can do about any of those 3 things? Rather than arguing the facts of had I not. So I just sent her a message. I'm about to start my program. I do love you. You're amazing. I'm so grateful for you. I'll message you when the program's over. And I just gave her some. So I assumed she must not either be feeling loved, safe, or connected. And so, okay, what can I do? I'll tell her I loved her. About all I could do in that moment. Okay. That night, I got back home after the workshop, and it was going to be a 3-day workshop. So a couple more days to go. I get in bed just out of male curiosity. I scroll through all my texts on WhatsApp with her that day. 5 times on WhatsApp, I told her I love you. Just out of male, because I'm a guy, I took screenshots of all 5 of them. All right, but I kept it to myself. So anyway, the rest of the weekend goes fine. She gets home late Sunday night, rides the bus home with the kids. We're in bed and we're snuggled up, and she goes, I need to give you an apology. I go, really? For what? And she said, the other day I said you hadn't said you loved me all day. I go, mm-hmm. She goes, I was just on the way home on the bus. I was looking through, my WhatsApp. She goes, you told me 4 times you loved me that day. But I go, no, it was actually 5. I got the screenshots for it. And we had a good laugh about it. But see, it was an emotional statement.
Yeah.
So if it triggers that reaction in you, probably that's a good sign that it's an emotional statement sometime that she wants a deeper engagement from you, a deeper connection with you, not feeling supported or loved by you.
I forget this.
How can we forget this? How can we forget it? Yeah, they dangle that nice juicy worm on that hook there.
I take the bait,
and we swallow the hook and bait. Yeah,
I need to tattoo this to my arm. I need to. I feel like that sometimes. Like I need to read an affirmation before I go into a conversation that says these things. I need to rehearse it and get myself grounded before I go into these conversations.
And any conversation, you can get grounded.
What are those reminders, Robert? If I was going to go into a conversation, give me a checklist right now. Going into a conversation, breathe. What do I want written down?
Yeah, you put this tattoo on your arm. Ground, breathe, open, get curious.
That's it.
Now, what if you've gotten curious about your wife's statement? Oh, you're really okay with our son spending, 8 hours a day on Fortnite? What if you got curious? You say, I'm curious why you would say that.
Yeah.
And if you really listened, she said, well, basically what's going to come down to is she probably thinks she's a hard ass with your son and you don't have clear enough boundaries with her.
That's right.
It's
That's
just my guess.
Yeah.
That's my guess. I'm just guessing. I have no way of knowing that, but it's just a guess. So that's the emotional statement. She probably feels like she has to be the bad guy, bad girl in every situation. You come off as a hard ass, and because you always look good in every situation because you don't come down on him, and that's probably some old story for her, and maybe part of still your nice guy thing. The kids like me better than her because I don't yell at them like she does. Again, I don't know if any of that's true, but. Could be.
Oh, that's great. Ground, breathe, open, curious. Yeah. What's funny is before you even said that, I wrote down how do I stay open-hearted? Because my heart closes for sure. I just had this conversation with Dr. Kelly Flanagan. Do you know that name, by the way?
That rings a bell. I know Jason Gaddis. You mentioned him earlier.
You'd love Kelly Flanagan. He's a member of our community. Great dude. He wrote Lovable. He wrote True Companions, book called Unhiding of Elijah Campbell. Really great dude. And also a therapist. You would just love him. You two would get along fabulously.
I jotted his name down because already I'm talking to you because of somebody else that told me about you and you about me. Now you're telling me about somebody else, and it works beautifully that way.
I've got several people I can't wait to build a bridge to for you, Robert. And I feel really good about the beginning of our friendship here as well, man. This is really powerful stuff for me. I hope other people like it, but it's really hitting home for me. I've got my list: ground, breathe, open, curious. Talk to me real quick about open though, because I'm telling you, I can ground myself, I can breathe, but I do close.
Yeah.
I can feel it. I feel the hate. I'm like, this is never going to work out. I'm beating my head against a wall. And I shut down and I don't remain curious. I try to remain open, but is it just more reps? Is it just failing, reflecting, looking back, trying again? Is that the answer?
You know what? I think wanting an answer can be part of the problem sometimes. There must be an answer where I can get this right. And that tightens us. And, even, all right, I want to get this conversation right. I'm going to go and I'm going to, you were probably tight from the very beginning when you went into that conversation with your wife about the kids' school. And guess what? She can read that. She can feel it in her body. That's why she probably threw a dart. She probably was miserable with, he's all wound up. He's tightened like a spring. He's ready to go
I
off.
have so much work to do, Robert.
Here, I don't have here's things that have helped me. Part of that mantra, the open part especially, about 3 years ago, I had actually a few years ago, COVID got in the way, but I got invited to go down to Costa Rica to speak at Rhythmia, a plant medicine retreat center. And they were doing a men's retreat, and I was the guest speaker for it. I'd never done any kind of psychedelics, plant medicine, so that was my first time to go do it. And they talk a lot about that opening and getting curious. That's kind of where I got that part from. And their mantra is what's coming is going. So whatever's coming up is going. And I remember they gave one example. The owner of it was sharing an example, the owner of Rhythmia. He says, all right, you're on the plant medicine, and mother's giving you two visions. One vision is of puppies frolicking, and the other is of your childhood abuser. Go towards the one that, that scares you, the one that needs to work.
Right.
And, that was such a powerful experience, and I've been back there another time. So I've done eight ceremonies in all. I think that's my biggest takeaway from doing plant medicine was the opening to just, okay, wherever this is taking me, I'm going to open to it. Now, some other things in there, I had a near-death experience about 6-7 years ago. I had a tumor blocking my small intestine that was killing me. Nobody could find it. Over a period of about 3 months, I lost over 30 pounds and couldn't eat, couldn't shit, couldn't sleep. I was in constant pain. Doctors here in Mexico, doctors in the US, I was misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed. And I finally, I had to surrender into the pain and to not knowing what was killing me. And I thought, I think I'm going to die of this. I don't even know what it is. And once I surrendered, it got easier. People say, Robert, are you feeling better? And I said, I don't know if I'm feeling better or just gotten better at feeling bad. And I wasn't better. And finally, a doctor down here ran the right test, found the tumor, and took it out. And I've been fine ever since. But how long surrender, were you the part I knew about, well over 3 months, I think it had been affecting me much longer. It was a golf ball sized tumor, so it'd been there for a while. I've been losing weight, but I'd kind of been trying to. So, kind of like you, I wasn't eating sugar. Oh man, look, the weight's just dropping off me. But so that surrender was really powerful. I think just, getting into, a lot of mindfulness kind of stuff. I love Thich Nhat Hanh. I'm listening right now. I was watching a podcast with Chris Williamson and Tim Ferriss just the other day, and they mentioned a book by Anthony DeMello called it's not Awake. It's I can't even think of the name of it right now. I always keep forgetting the name. And so I've been it's him speaking about just mindfulness and separate being the observer of self, and so. I've just kind of, been into a lot of that, the last few years of mindfulness type thing of just being the noticer without judgment.
Yeah,
and
the
so,
noticer.
And
Is it
so
called Awareness?
Awareness, that's the book. Awareness. And it started with an A, Awareness. And it's an audio book of him speaking of a presentation. So I just will go lay on my bed. I was doing that just before I got on the call with you today. Like I said, I'm getting over this cold, and part of me goes, oh, I want to feel good so I can do these. I got another interview tonight with another good buddy of mine, and I want to feel better. I thought, well, I think I just need to relax into it. And so I'm listening to, Anthony DeMello, and, so I think life will give us those opportunities to practice surrender and acceptance. You're probably familiar with the Serenity Prayer from 12 Steps.
Absolutely.
And it's taken me years to really, I think, get it. That when it begins with grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, that means surrender. That means you can't change your wife. I can't change my wife. And the more I think about it, why would I want to change my wife? Why would I want her to be any different than the person that she is, other than the fact that there's that one or two things that trigger me? Well, why would I want her to change just because I get triggered? But why isn't it better if that stuff just washed over me and it didn't matter? So change the things that I can, or serenity to accept the things I cannot change. So I might be dying. Okay. I'm on this plant medicine journey. There's things happen to me. Can I just open to them and accept it and learn from it? My wife's triggering me. Can I accept that, open to it, learn from it, and ask those questions? Is she not feeling loved enough, secure enough, connected enough? And the second part of it is in the courage to change the things that I can. There are things that we can do different. You can ground. You can set boundaries. You can actually have a righteous anger towards your wife that says, no, we're not going there. We're drawing a line. But it's still a very respectful, righteous, loving anger, a container that the feminine will usually actually appreciate. Sometimes they're throwing the darts because they just want to see, is he man enough to be my man? Is he going to stand up? Is he going to draw a line? Is he going to give me something clear to go on? Rather than us either trying to, talk them through, talk them down, talk them over, or just blowing up at them. There's a big difference between, a righteous anger that says, no, we don't go there. There's a line. And I think the feminine typically feels safer when that line is clear. So again, you trying to repress all of this probably just tightens you up. What if you could go into those kind of conversations you had with your wife and say, you know what? I'm going to be open to every possibility that might arise, and I'm going to practice being equally okay with every possible outcome. It's a term somebody used, I heard a few years ago, called outcome agnostic. I love that term. What if we really could be equally okay with, we may not like equally every possible outcome, but what if we could be equally okay with every possible outcome?
Hold on one sec, Robert. Question. My 9-year-old's coming in, checking.
That's all right. Usually my pit bull is usually sitting here with me.
We're leaving
the company.
We're leaving on a trip shortly. One sec, Robert.
Can you bring your 9-year-old on camera?
Ocean.
Since it's front row's dad's, kids come first, right? Hey, dude. Your name's Ocean?
Yes.
You want to know how to say that in Spanish?
Sure.
Mar. Mar. That's how you say ocean or sea in Spanish.
Wow.
Now you got a new Spanish word.
I can call you Mars.
I'm the mar.
No thanks.
Soy el mar. I'm the mar.
More.
You're a quick learner.
This is Dr. Robert Glover. He lives in Mexico, and he wrote an awesome book that I read recently. Yeah.
What they're called?
What's it
It's
called?
called No More Mr. Nice Guy.
What
Do you
do
ever
think
say
about
that? You ever say, no more Mr. Nice Guy?
Sometime.
Hey,
Yeah, you practice that with your older brother, right?
Yeah.
so
No more Mr. Nice Guy, Tiger.
hey, Uncle Robert here is he has he has 3 kids, right? You have 3 children.
I've lost track. I've
How old are your kids?
I've got a biological son. My son Grant is going to be 39 next month, and I've raised 4 different stepkids.
Yeah.
So my stepkids are about the age of your kids. So
Aw.
so yeah, I love kids. Love being a dad.
There you go. All right, let us finish up, and I'll be down shortly. Okay.
Good to meet you, Ocean.
Shortly.
Be the mar.
Robert, I do want to land the plane here, maybe in the next 5 minutes or so, but I didn't want to leave us hanging on this boundary piece.
Yeah, I was thinking, is he going to come back to boundaries?
Yeah, and I know we could do a whole show on that, and
we could.
if you're open to it, I would love to have a follow-up conversation and take a deep dive into boundaries. If you're game for that at some point. And maybe what we could do is we could just leave this then as the teaser for our next show. Something, and I would just like to give you maybe, how would you tee us up for a boundary conversation is my question. And I've been exploring this a lot recently. I have my own thoughts and questions around the topic. My biggest breakthrough is that boundaries are for me, not for other people.
Oh, that's one of my golden rules. Yeah.
Teach people how to act, but to teach me how to act around them.
Yeah.
So that was a huge breakthrough for me this year. But I'm going to leave it open-ended for you. Kind of if anything comes up for you, if there's a story, if there's a framework, if there's something that might trigger a thought for guys as they leave today, this great conversation.
All right, great. Yeah, let's tease up part 2, which will be the boundary conversation. Boundaries are such a relevant subject, and you're right. One of the golden rules is boundaries aren't about getting other people to be different. They're about getting you to be different.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody else is who they are. I got a PhD. I don't know how to get anybody to be different. Yeah, working on me is enough.
Yeah.
And another thing that people maybe don't really grasp early on about boundaries, because we tend to think of boundaries are the no, stop, don't do that, which they can be. But excuse me, boundaries are actually what allow us to let people close to us. Because if we don't have boundaries, we're not going to let people get close to us. We're going to either build walls or just avoid people altogether. But if we know, we can say we're an adult and we can decide who comes into our space, what they do while they're in there, how long they can stay, when it's time for them to go. That allows you to let people in. But if you don't know that you have a say in who comes in, what they can do, how long they can stay, and when it's time to go, you'll either have to push them away or just avoid them altogether. So boundaries allow people to get close. So we just want to put that as a positive note.
That's cool.
So let me just throw this one other, I'll throw out the illustration about, we'll save the illustration for the next one.
Okay.
But I'll give a trick question that maybe we can answer on the next show. So the trick question is, why in Western culture do children get spanked? In cases where they do. Why do they get punished in any corporal way? And I say Western culture, but I think it's true in most cultures. So the trick question, because everybody's answer is going to be wrong. So I'll just say that up front. That everybody's answer is going to be wrong as to why in Western culture children receive corporal punishment.
I like it.
We'll answer
All right,
it on
guys.
the next one.
That's I haven't done this in a while. In fact, have I ended a show like this where we teed up part 2? I don't think so. Not quite like we just did now. This is fun. I appreciate it. Robert, thank you so much for being with me today and having this great conversation. I have written down and I'm walking away with ground, breathe, open, curious. What's coming is going. Is my wife not feeling loved, not feeling connected, not feeling safe? I have some great notes here that I'm going to take into my daily life. And I do want to say one more time to you, thank you for writing this book. I want to recommend to the guys to go pick up a copy of No More Mr. Nice Guy. And if you do, write a review on the book, reach out to Robert, let him know what you think, reach out to me. I would love to hear the impact that it continues to have for you. And I'm excited about round 2, but thank you for today, Robert. Appreciate you being here.
John, you're welcome. It's good to talk to you and good to get to know you. Look forward to getting to know you better.
All right, brother. Talk soon.
Thanks for listening today, fellas. If you got value from this episode, I ask that you take 1 second right now and you share this with another dad in your life that you respect, that you know is committed to becoming a better man, family man, and businessman. And on that note, I want to honor you for choosing growth. Your family will thank you years from now for all the effort that you're putting in to learn the strategies so you can show up more fully for them today. Take care.